Hello, everybody, and welcome back. This is round 2 of my football podcast. Most of you probably already know that I usually do video games, but again, this is going to be my second installation into the football podcast that I'll be doing roughly about once a week. Now, last week we started things off and we talked about the draft. The draft was coming up for the 2019 NFL season, and I did just a basic overview of the draft and what I thought a good mock draft would be, and what I think just a perfect draft for each team kind of played out. Not necessarily what I thought would happen, just what I thought that was best for each team. So now, obviously, now that the draft is over, we're going to be looking at the post side of things. So we're going to be looking at just little things. A lot of people out there are going to be kind of going over what they think, grading things like that. So I'll throw out some grades, I'll throw out some sleepers, a little things that most people aren't really talking about. So let me turn this bad boy down so I don't know if y'all can hear me a little bit. So again, welcome, thank you so much. Hopefully get a follow out of this. You know, if y'all want to follow me, subscribe. Also down at the bottom, there is a link for Metalhead. If y'all are into metal art design, things like that, go ahead and click on that link down below. So we're going to go ahead and get things started. The biggest question out there to me, or really what I hear whenever I'm watching all these, is who won the draft? And in my opinion, that's not really something that you can kind of answer right at this point. That's the biggest question. Who won the draft? Everyone's asking. If you look online, it's all over the place. So in my opinion, that's not something that you can really answer until you get into real football. You know, you get into the games and those rookie players make an impact or create chemistry with other players and build your team from the inside out. So that's not my question. I usually go with a simple grading little tool that I use, and I'll actually explain it to you. Now, it's just a basic tool that I use. It's just a grading tool that kind of dictates, did you have a good draft? Was that a good pick for your team? So, without further ado, the Scranton Stranglers theory of a perfect draft. So, I've split it up into 3 categories. That first category is talent. Now, a lot of these players are going to be talented. Obviously, that's what they do. That's why they're going to get paid to be a professional athlete. So talent is usually there for most people. Now, once you kind of get into the later rounds, those last 3 or 4, that's whenever the talent really kind of comes out. Which teams, you can kind of tell which teams really did their homework on those later rounds, or were they just trying to make a big splash at the beginning. So first 33%, if you will, is going to be talent. The next is going to be a need. Now, you can have a talent, but is that talent that you got a need for your team? It's great if you have 2 fantastic quarterbacks, but unfortunately one can only play at a time, or at least do his job at a time. So, if you will, is kind of an example. Obviously, you won't have 2 quarterbacks. Some do. But so that next one, that next 33% is going to be what did you feel a need for your team? So I think that's going to be very important. So the next and last, we're going to round it off, is going to be the value. What value or what time of the draft did you get that player? Did you get them at a great value whenever most people project them that are already be picked? Or did you pick them a little too early? Did you jump the gun a little bit and we're just kind of reaching? So we're going to... those are the 3 really big things that I look at whenever you look into the NFL draft. And that's how I essentially calculate my grade, if you will. There's a couple little things that I do throw in there every once in a while. Fit. Is it a good fit for your team? Now, again, in my opinion on that one, say if like a quarterback's used to shotgun. Most college quarterbacks are, and then you move into a kind of a pro style offense. There's going to be some sort of a learning curve, or as far as a defense, linebacker or defensive lineman. If you're going from a 3-4 to a 4-3, again, there's going to be some sort of curve to it. Is it a good fit? Is it something that they are used to and they ran for the past 4 or some odd years in college, or is it something that they're going to have to kind of not relearn, but just get used to? Now, I don't put that too high into the grading factor because they're professional athletes. They should that's what they do. And then these coaches, they hire the professional coaches to coach these athletes to do exactly what they need to fit the offense. So fit is not too much. It's something that you can coach around and work around, if you will. The other one is splash. Sometimes I kind of throw that in there. Did you get a splash player? Not every player is going to be a splash player. You're really only going to get those in those first two maybe 3 rounds. So if a player's fallen in the draft, so those are my top 3 things. Then this next one. So really, what I'm going to start off whenever I go into it is the best overall sleeper. So a sleeper obviously is going to be someone who you really picked up at a great value, someone you picked up at kind of later in the draft that most people would have either guessed or projected that they have already been picked up, or just really have a high scale for this person when not a lot of other people do. So there's a couple different sleepers. The best, I've listed out actually 3, my top 3 sleepers. So the first one, actually, no. My best sleeper of this draft, is going to be Terry Godwin out of Georgia. He's a wide receiver. Played for. He's a 4-year player, but he really kind of just got overshadowed from all of the A-plus players that have come out of Georgia. Georgia is one of the best schools in the country and have been for the last 3-4 years plus. So Terry Godwin, he's a guy. If you have time, watch some highlights on. He's really fantastic, and. He was picked actually out of the 7th round, out of the Carolina Panthers. I believe it was the 22nd or 23rd pick out of the 7th round, the very last round. And there were some other skill players that were picked, in the 7th round that I thought were really good. But the one that just really, why this one stood out to me was because the Carolina Panthers, that's something that they really need. They haven't had just a really top wide receiver for quite a while, and that's just something that they're kind of lacking, in my opinion. So this is a guy, regardless, he's a 7th round. They're probably, most people don't think that he can be a 1st round pick. Maybe he's, a slot receiver, a good backup. I think this guy's got tremendous high ceiling, and that he's going to turn out great for him, and he's going to surprise some people, definitely. So I jumped a little head earlier, but we're going to move on to this next one. These are going to be the best trades. This is the one that I actually took my top 3 on. The best trades of the draft. There were quite a few. The first ones didn't really. A lot of people thought there were going to be some trades earlier in the draft, but once they really got going, they just kind of snowballed into effect, in the later 1st round, and then so on and so forth. But here are my top 3 trades. First one is going to be probably up there. It's the Josh Rosen trade. Now, I know that obviously Josh, he didn't have the best year last year. He took his team 3-13. So that's why his team was the worst. Had the worst record in the first pick in the NFL draft. So, but I think it has a lot to do with scheme, fit, things like that. I think that the Miami Dolphins, out of all the teams that needed a quarterback, including the Arizona Cardinals, the Miami Dolphins just made more sense for Josh Rosen. So I actually like that. And they got him at a great cost, 2nd year out of his contract, so they didn't have to pay an arm and a leg. They're not going to end up paying $25 million on that 1st round, because I believe the Cardinals have pretty much paid like 70% of his salary already. So good pick on the Miami Dolphins. So that was my first trade that just when you kind of encompass the overall player, because Josh is a good player. I just don't think he was, he could have used a year to sit. I think most quarterbacks could very well benefit from a year of just sitting and kind of learning. He obviously was thrown into the fire a little bit, not immediately, but he was thrown into the fire, and then with just the coaching, just kind of overall, it just wasn't a good fit. So him to the Miami Dolphins is my number 1 trade. Number 2 is going to be Devin Bush Jr. The Pittsburgh Steelers jumped from in the 1st round, jumped for their 20th pick all the way up to 10. and they got Devin Bush Jr. They've really been lacking in the linebackers since they lost Ryan Shazier a couple of years ago. So this is someone that's going to kind of solidify that linebacking core. Now that they have TJ Watt, they'll have Devin Bush in the middle at Mike linebacker, and then they'll have Bud Dupree over on the other side. So Bud Dupree is definitely the weak link, especially he just hasn't been producing, but he's had a good last 2 years have been decent for him, have been kind of the upside, so I think that's why he's hanging around. If it were up to me, this would, in my opinion, if you were asking me, this might not necessarily a do or die year for him, but definitely needs to be a productive year if he wants to remain at least a starter quality, in my opinion. Now, the third and final one that I have are just the Washington Redskins. Now, this is kind of going in the opposite direction. I know that it says trade, the best overall trade. This is the best overall not trade. I know that they are probably the team in the NFL draft this year with the heaviest need for quarterback, and they could have easily given up an arm and a leg, if you will, and traded up to get a quarterback. The quarterback that they got, they actually didn't. They got in the 15th pick in the first round, they got Dwayne Haskins out of Ohio State. I think that that's the best quarterback for them. I think if they were going to trade up, they probably would have gone and got him. So kudos to them for not trading up and, like I said, giving up a lot of stuff because they got the quarterback of their future. I just think Dwayne Haskins fits best with them. I actually had him in my mock draft going to them because I think that's going to be a good marriage, if you will. Kind of like the Rosen and the Miami Dolphins. Just a good fit, and I think both sides, the team and the quarterback, are going to benefit from it versus how it could have gone. So those are my top three trades in this NFL draft. Let me know if you had any other opinions. If you thought another trade maybe in one of the later rounds, or Washington actually did make a trade later in that first round, which I thought that was actually pretty good, and they got Montez Sweat, defensive end. So I thought that was a really good pickup too. Really, just in general, the first round for Washington Redskins were the best that it could have gone. And traditionally, Washington Redskins, they're not really known for their drafting, I would say. So good job to them. So those are my top three trades. Next one, what I wanted to talk about are really just my predictions. In my next videos, I'm going to be going over grades, etc. I'm not going to give up too much, but I am definitely going to be grading, and I'll be going by division so it doesn't take too long. I know my first video was kind of over an hour. It was my first one, so I do tend to talk a lot when it comes to football, so I'm going to try to shorten these down for you. So the Offensive Rookie of the Year prediction, in my opinion. This is, I'm just kind of going over, whenever I calculated this, I look at the player's talent, what team they went to, the schedule, other players on that team, and really just how it affects them, if I think that person will be a starter, things like that. So in this particular one, I actually went with Josh Jacobs, running back out of Alabama. He was the first running back taken out of this draft. Actually, the only running back taken in the first round. It was a projected pick. I'm pretty sure I had them taking him in my mock draft as well, and I think it's a good pick. Gruden coming in his second year, he definitely needs to produce. So he went out and got a guy that is just a hammer. This guy, he's got tremendous speed. He's got great speed, and he hits like a rock. I don't know if you watched any tape on him. They did have two. They had Damian Harris also coming out of Alabama, but this guy really kind of stole the spotlight throughout the year and became that main guy. Now, the one thing that I did want to kind of keep an eye on, this guy wasn't really known for his catching out of the backfield, and I think that that's something that he could work on. So if we definitely see him, kind of start catching more passes out of the running back position, then I think that will excel his game even more. But I just think that he's going to be the Offensive Rookie of the Year, probably the best running back in the draft. Goes to a team that absolutely needs a running back. The only other running back that I'm aware of right now, decent running back that I'm aware of right now, that's on the Oakland Raiders, Isaiah Crowell, which unfortunately tore his ACL or Achilles. I'll have to look that up. I think it was ACL today or yesterday. So he is the lone back right now, and I think he's ready to take that load with those fresh legs, coming out of college. Another thing that I think is going to help him is the Oakland Raiders did acquire Antonio Brown this year, a trade from the Pittsburgh Steelers, and gave away nothing pretty much for him. So I think that kind of, you're not going to be able, there's no way you can stack the box against an Antonio Brown type player. So that'll kind of open things up for Josh Jacobs, and hopefully they have kind of a balanced attack. So obviously that was the offensive rookie of the year. Now I'm going to kind of switch sides and go to defensive rookie of the year. This draft was really just full of defensive superstars from all positions. This was probably the hardest one that I was really trying to predict was the defensive rookie of the year. So I went with Josh Allen, edge player out of Kentucky. I know what you're saying. There's Quentin Williams, there's Joey Bosa, there's Devin White, there's just a plethora, like I said, of players. It was a defensive front heavy draft. But I really just kind of looked at, again, similar what I did to the offensive side of the ball. I looked at the player, what they really did in college. Josh Allen, he was incredible last season, but I know he really wasn't. He was kind of moved around a little bit on that defensive line, so he's not necessarily a natural edge rusher. And I think that with that, he's just only going to get better. And you get better with 17 sacks in one season. I would definitely want him on my side versus rushing my quarterback. So I picked Josh Allen going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, obviously, Saxonville, they did get away from that a little bit last season. They had a very, very down year. And I think that Josh Allen, one of the things that helped me pick him was that he's just going to bring that Saxonville aspect, that kind of defensive powerhouse culture back to them. And just Saxonville, I think it's kind of been taken away because of Jalen Ramsey. That's just my personal opinion. He needs to just play some ball and really just kind of get them back. They're just 1 year removed outside of that AFC Championship game. So if they can get back to that, especially with Josh Allen in the mix, I think that most people would agree. He could be the defensive rookie of the year, but we'll see how some of those other fantastic guys turn out. So those are my offensive and defensive rookies of the year prediction. What I'm going to do now is really I'm just going to end it with what is my most improved team? Is it going to be a team that just barely, didn't make the playoffs to win in a Super Bowl? Is it going to be, someone that just was one piece away in the first round, that getting that, defensive superstar and kind of turning things around from them? In my particular opinion, and I'm including the offseason as well, the offseason and the draft, my overall pick is going to be the Arizona Cardinals. They had a fantastic free agency, fantastic offseason, and an even better draft. They were probably my favorite drafting team of this draft. And I'll kind of go down the list now. Obviously, Kyler Murray, quarterback out of Oklahoma, he does, he's the first overall quarterback coming out of that fantastic system from Lincoln Riley rather. And he did steal the show. So obviously want to throw him out there, but that's not even the reason. You could even look at all those guys going down, and they're definitely going to help and make a difference of their football team. Second round, first pick, Byron Murphy, cornerback out of Washington. I was very jealous whenever they picked him because he's just a cornerback that's going to fill the need. He's going to be really just an instant starter. He's going to go right outside of the opposite side of Patrick Peterson. And I think that they're gonna both be lockdown corners. I think he is a turnover machine, Byron Murphy, and he's I believe I had him going to it was either Pittsburgh or Seattle Seahawks. I believe it was one of the two. Maybe it was Greedy that I had going to Seahawks, but Great absolute guy, and the fact that they got him in the second round was a great value as well. So talent, value, all right there for me. Then what they did is the Arizona Cardinals, they went out and they got their brand new quarterback some absolute playmakers. Would they get 3 wide receivers? Andy Isabella, great wide receiver. My favorite addition that they got with him is Hakeem Butler, 4th round, first pick out of Iowa State. Guy is an absolute monster. He was probably my favorite wide receiver coming out of the NFL draft, and the value is tremendous. He was actually in my top 5 as far as my sleeper picks, but I had Terry Godwin winning that pick because it was a 7th round pick. So Hakeem Butler, absolute monster. He's that Calvin Johnson-esque type wide receiver, really big body. I think the reason why he slid down so much was he had a couple little drops every once in a while, but in my opinion, though he had some pretty perplexing catches, broken tackles, just etc. that he did that kind of outweigh some of those little drops. So the fact that they got him in the 4th round was an absolute steal. Then in the 5th round, they got a great safety out of Alabama. I'm trying to remember. I had him going actually to the Cowboys. So the fact that they got him in the 5th round was a great value, a great player. I don't think he may have only been a year or maybe 2 starter, but really just anybody in that Nick Saban defense, you can kind of hang your hats on, but especially at the safety position. You go out and get another, that's your 3rd wide receiver, in Keyshawn Johnson Jr. Get a couple of get a couple of centers, guards, tackles, things like that to kind of help out that little quarterback of yours, make sure he's protected and doesn't get injured. Although I can say he's probably the best quarterback in a very, very long time that protects his body. And then finish it out on the very last pick with a tight end. So really, they got their quarterback, they got their guy, they got their playmakers, and then they're getting the guy protected. And those are just really 3 things right there that the 3 recipes for success. So I think especially with Cliff Kingsbury's brand new, kind of styled offense coming to a different style offense than we're used to seeing in the NFL. I think the Arizona Cardinals are going to be the most improved team in the NFL. I'm not saying they're going, worst to first by any means, but I do think that they will make the other teams in their division, run for their money. Although they're in a very, very good division. So, that's definitely going to be my most improved team. So again, I promise you guys that it would be, fairly short tonight. This wasn't going to be an hour-long video. I greatly appreciate all of y'all watching. Again, I greatly appreciate if y'all want to go ahead and follow me. I'm going to be doing these once a week, and also my regular stream on video games. Subscribe as well, and then also go down in the link, and there is a Metalhead Threads link you can go and look at if you want to look at some cool metal art, Halloween masks, all kinds of good stuff. It's pretty incredible stuff. So thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it. God bless, and have a good night. Strangler out.